I'm Mark Henderson from the Mainframe R&D group at Serena. I'm going to talk today about a new feature in release 8.1.1 of ChangeMan ZMF. This feature is called Seat Usage, Rights and Reporting. Now there are a number of different interfaces to ChangeMan ZMF. The one covered by Seat Usage, Rights and Reporting is that of the client pack. Now the client pack is a combination of ChangeMan ZMF for Eclipse and ChangeMan ZDD. And together, these two features provide PC-based access to ChangeMan services. Now the impetus for this new feature came from customers who approached Serena with a view to ensuring that they were staying in compliance with the terms of their sales contract. To explain that, the client pack is usually sold with a user or seat count, and this represents the maximum number of concurrent users of the product. And until now there's been no easy way to account for the number of users, and certainly no enforcement of any user limit. Now the client pack is actually sold with a license, and that license is distributed in XML form. So a series of XML tags. The one we're interested in here is, not surprisingly, the users tag. And you can see I've generated a license here with a user count of 2. And this is just for the purposes of the demonstration. In the real world, that number would be much larger. Or it might have a value of 0, which is a unique value used to represent an unlimited license. What that looks like in terms of a running system is reflected by the 0701I message shown at the top. You'll see the first instance is for product 210, and what that is the mainframe interface to ChangeMan ZMF, which is currently sold without a user or seat count, and therefore we have the tag on the end of unlimited. What we're interested in today though is product 213, which is the client pack, and we see a reflection of the XML tag there in the users equals 2 specification. So what I'm going to do now is log on, and I'm going to log on using my primary RACF user ID of mhender, and the most salient bit there is the R bit on the end, and I'll explain why in a minute. So we log on, and I'm going to explain one or two facets of the SIR 8209 Logon Message here. The first thing is that for the client pack, the user type will always be CLP, and that will be qualified by either ZDD for ChangeMan for ZDD or ECL for ChangeMan for ZMF for Eclipse. The user token value is a hash value which comes from 3 factors. It's the Windows computer name, the Windows username, and the mainframe name. And it's used to differentiate between multiple logons. So both interfaces to the client pack will sometimes issue multiple logons for a single user ID. And this is done for internal purposes, to do background processing. But clearly in the context of seat usage of rights and reporting, we should only actually be counting one of those logons. And that user token value allows us to do that. The simple rule of thumb is that if you see a UHWM value on the SIR 8209, you will know that that user has been counted against the user count value. If that is missing, then it means that this is a duplicate logon and it has not been counted against the user count value. So we see here that we do indeed have a user high watermark of 1, so that's how many users are currently using the client pack. And we see that that is actually 50% of the actual user limit. So now I'm going to log on again using my secondary user ID, where the final character is a number 2. And clearly that's a different user ID from the first one, mhender. So we see another SIR 8209, we see a different user ID, we see a different user token, and therefore we see that the user high watermark has been updated to 2, which is 100% of the value of the seat count. Now finally I'm going to do a third logon using my third user ID of mhender3, And you'll see we get a 08273 saying that mHender3 has been denied access because the maximum number of users of the product, which is a value of 2, has been reached. If we cancel out of that, go to the started task, we'll see the very same error message. So that's the enforcement side of seat usage rights and reporting. Let's talk a little bit more now about the reporting side. At any time you can issue a command called products, and what that does is to detail for the 3 separate products currently known to the Serena world on the mainframe, that is ChangeMan for ZMF, ChangeMan Serena Release Control, and the client pack. It gives you 5 pieces of information. So I'll go through these 5 different columns. The first one, current, that's clearly the current number of users of that particular product. The second one, max users, that's the value from the users tag in the XML, from the SIR 701 message, i.e. it's how many users you're allowed to have of that product. And again, a value of 0 says unlimited, i.e. nobody will ever be refused access to the product. The third column, the high watermark total, that's the high watermark during the lifetime of this started task. So what is the maximum number of users you've had at any instant during the lifetime of this started task? Fourth column is the same value, but this time the highest number of users you've had during this past hour. So you'll see the timing of this message is 11:23. So what it would relate to here is what's the maximum number of users you've had during the 23 minutes since 11 o'clock. And then finally you will get the vial hours column, and what that relates to is the number of hours during which there have been violations, i.e. seat enforcement has taken place. Now you might quite rightly say, well, why does that not say 1 for the client pack right now? We know we've seen a SIR 8273 message saying that mHender3 was denied access. The reason for this is that the reporting is the figures are only actually accumulated on the hour. So that figure will actually get updated at 12 o'clock in this instance. And while we're talking about the maintenance of statistics for this feature, it's important to know that the figures are only actually maintained within an LPAR. They are not maintained across a sysplex. So what that means is whether you have 1 server or whether you have 5 servers running on the same LPAR, the count applies to all of those servers. So if you put together a user count of 100 and there are 5 servers, those 5 servers will share the 100 users and the counts will be accumulated across those 5. But again, servers on any remote LPAR within the Plex, they will be isolated, not counted. Okay, there's 2 other products or extensions to commands which have been introduced by this piece of work. Another one is the users command. So users with no operand gives a list of all current users. Just make that top of the screen. If we want to ask for all users of the client pack, in this instance it amounts to the same thing. If you want to ask for all users of ChangeMan for ZMF for Eclipse, you'll see there aren't any. Or if you want to ask for all users of ChangeMan ZDD, you'll say the same list. That's an extension to the existing users command. A new command that came in with this, and this is the final command I'm going to talk about, is the license command. So this is the ability to redrive the licensing code. So let's say you don't want to drop your started task, but you do have a new license, maybe because you've increased or decreased the number of users you have, and you want to make that new limit from your license active in the running system. So what we can do is issue the license command, and you'll see that it redrives the licensing code and we get new instances of the SIR 701 message. in this case, because we've not actually updated the physical license, they read exactly the same as they did when the started task was first brought up. In case it's of interest, that license code gets redriven on the cap report interval, which is a sys_in control statement. You'll see there, cap report equals 3. What that means is the licensing code will get redriven every 3 hours as a matter of course. So you have two different ways of updating your license information if that's what you need to do to a running system. So just two more things to say about reporting side of this feature. The first thing is that reports are produced every hour on the hour, and that is for products where activity has occurred. So if you have a licensed product but nobody has logged on, there'll be no report. If you have a licensed product and users have logged on, there will be a report. Unfortunately now we're sitting at 11:27, so we're not going to see one. The other half of this is that statistics are produced on shutdown. So what I'm going to do here is just log off these two user IDs. And I'm going to issue a shutdown command to this started task. And if we do a find on cert 2020, you'll see the reporting. So the way shutdown reporting works is that as long as the product is licensed, you will get a cert 2020 message. And sure enough, even though there was no usage of ZMF during this started task, we do produce a cert 2020 for it. And then finally, it gives a user high watermark for the client pack during the lifetime of the started task of 2, and that represents the 2 logons we did. We then get to a cert 2022, which is a representation of the number of times, number of hourly periods during which violations were occurred. So that's the end of my presentation today, and hopefully what you've seen here is how a user count value from an XML license is brought into the started task and applied to the client pack in terms of both the enforcement of the value and reporting on that value.